YouTube, I'm ABC, and today I'm making a tutorial for you guys. In today's tutorial, we're going to be talking about moving in and out of cars in a Grand Theft Auto type style, or I guess any game of that sort. Now, this was suggested by Thunder from MK at the update video that I made to introduce this channel. So the basic idea of this is that you move around the player, and then when you move into the car, you basically hand over the reins so the car is the one that's being controlled instead of the player. So I'm going to create a variable in both those objects called alive that's going to represent whether they can be controlled or not. And so that's how I'm going to go about this. I'm not actually going to change, delete, or add any objects. I'm just going to change who's in control, I guess. So first I'm going to create obj player. I already the sprites created, SPR player, SPR car. You can make them as pretty or as not pretty as you want. And then I'll make obj car as well. Obj car. There we go. Alright, so as I mentioned earlier, there's the alive variable, and then so alive is equal to true, because in the beginning we want the player to be in control. And if you have a bigger project, you might want to consider making this variable controllable or something along those lines, because I imagine alive can be vague. But for this sense, we're going to call alive, meaning alive is the person in control. Okay, so now in the step event, we're going to control the movement of the player. So if alive equals true, then we want it to move normally. So I'm going to go through that age-old code that I use over and over and over again. I should probably come up with a cool name for this code. So if you're moving right, add a certain amount to the X values, make you move right. If you're pressing the left button, take away a certain amount from the X value to make you move left. And then I'll copy this, and then I'll do the same for the vertical directions. So if I'm moving down, add 8 to Y. If I'm moving up, take 8 from Y. Alright, so this is what we want to do in live. When we're live, we want to move normally. Okay, and then I'll touch on else. And if we're not live, we want visible to be equal to true, because then we want it to seem as if we're inside the car. And then vice versa, if we get out of the car, visible equal to false. My apologies. So because we don't want to be seen. So then we hop out of the car, alive will be set back to true, and we want to make sure that visible is set back to true. Okay, equal to true. Okay, so in the creation event, I'm going to create a new variable, car, set this equal to 0. It doesn't really matter. And this will represent which car we're currently interacting with. Okay, so when we press the space bar, we're going to set car equal to the nearest car, instance nearest car, or obj car, and it needs to be nearest to our XY coordinates. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to take care of us hopping into the car. So the first condition is whether we're close enough to this car, because the nearest car could be 200 miles away. We don't want to be able to hop into it like that. So we're going to check it. So if distance to object, obj car is less than 64. And we also make sure that alive equals true, because if alive equals false, that means we're inside the car, and we want to have the car take care of us dropping off. This event we want to specifically handle us going into the car. Okay, so if we hop into the car, we want alive to be equal to false, because we're moving into the car is alive now, and we're dead, figuratively. Then we want the car to be alive, so car.alive equals true. And there's one more thing I'm going to add in the step event. So when we're not live, we want to fall around the car, because the way I have it right now is that once we transfer over power to the car, we just basically sit there invisible where we started off until the car comes and drops us off. So I want to make sure that we fall around the car. So I'm going to say x equals obj car, car.x, not obj car, because there could be multiple cars. And if I do obj car, I'll just select the first car, but we want it to be the car that we're working with. And then y is equal to car.y. By the way, I have both these sprites centered. So if I have it equal car.x and car.y, it'll be centered in the car. That's not sure if it's important or not, but that's that. Okay, so now in OBJ player, the car's going to work in mostly the same way as OBJ player. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the step event code. going to go to the cars step event, and I'm going to paste it. Okay, so the difference is, if alive equals true, we want to be able to move. Otherwise, we want to do absolutely nothing. So we're going to take away this part because we don't want the visibility to be changed, or we don't want X and Y to be changed if it's not alive. And that makes that unnecessary because visible will always be true. So that's all for that. And then I'll go ahead and define the alive variable in the creation event. So this is alive for the car. Keep in mind, both these objects have a variable called alive, but they're specific to that object because they're local variables, not global. Okay, so when we press spacebar, this is going to go, well, okay, so first off, if we're alive, that's true, meaning if we have a human inside of our car, then we want to drop them off. So in order to drop them off, we'll set obj player dot alive equals true because he's now alive, and also note that I can reference him by obj player. In the player object, I had referenced the cars by a specific variable, but since we know there's only one obj player, I don't have to worry about it. I can just reference him by obj player. Okay, so now that the player's alive, the player and we're not alive, so I'm going to set alive equal to false. I want to set the player's X to be to my left because we're assuming that we're in America, we're not in England where you get out on the right. We're assuming that it's getting out on the left, and so we're going to move his X values to the left of us. So obj player.x equals our X minus 32, and obj player.y equals our Y. And that's all for that. Okay, so now I'm going to test it, but there's going to be, well, I gotta make the game first. So add a few cars, add as many or as few as you want. This is going to be like a really unorganized parking lot or something. Put the player roughly in the center. Alright, so now there's going to be a problem because I tested, I know there's going to be a problem. Oh, I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that problem though. Set live equal to false in the creation of the car. If it's equal to true, then it's going to be in control right from the get-go. We don't want that. We want in the beginning that we want them to be dead. Okay. So now we can only control the player. And if I hop into the car, it just transports me to the left of the car. So what's happening is I press spacebar, and then it calls the event for the player, and then it's in the car. And then immediately after, it calls the event for the car. So what happens is I create a player first, so it goes through the event for the player first. So when I press spacebar, and it goes through all this code, which means I'm inside the car. Then it moves on to the car, and it triggers that one for the spacebar. So every time you press spacebar, it triggers player first, and then the car, and then it goes to this and drops the player right back off. So that's why there's not a single frame where it's inside our guy's inside the car because it pops him directly back out. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new variable in the car and call it drop off. So equal to, it doesn't really matter, but equal to false, I guess. So this represents whether or not we are able to drop off the player, because we want there to be a little bit of a buffer time after the player gets in where you're not able to drop them off. Okay, so in our spacebar event, when we're going to drop them off, we want to also check the drop off variables. If drop off equals true, drop off, and then head over to our player, and then we go into the car. We want the car's drop off to equal false, and then we're going to set alarm 0 for the car. Car.alarm 0 is set equal to 15 or so. It doesn't really matter. Anything more than one or more. And when alarm 0 goes off, we're going to make the car able to drop off the player again. So alarm 0 drop off equals true. Okay, so now it should work perfectly, God willing. Alright, I can move. I press spacebar, I'm inside the car, and notice he's not being pushed out again. And now I have full control of the car. I can go wherever I want with the car. Press space again, and the car drops me off, and I'm in control again. So that's the tutorial. Hope you found it helpful. Hope this was what you were looking for. Please rate, comment, subscribe if you found it helpful. I'm making more tutorials like this. I recorded like 5 tutorials yesterday. I was a little bit lazy today. This was the only one I'm recording today. But these should all be coming on, and if you like this one, then I highly recommend you watch some of my other ones. So I'll see you guys next time. Have a nice day.